Power creep. If you don't already know, gacha game content creator Saint Tontas just released a video talking about the current trajectory of the power creep in ArknightsEndfield. One thing he mentioned was how no content creator in the ArknightsEndfield community is talking about this issue, and that he believes no one will. Well, I am here today to do just that. Before we get into it, I'm on the journey to 1,000 subscribers. The amount of support I've gotten after uploading my first couple of videos 2 weeks ago has been astronomical, and I greatly appreciate each and every one of you who chooses to hit that subscribe button and join me on my content creation journey. Now, back to the video. Now, a couple of disclaimers before I get into it. My intention is in no way to ever take part in gacha tribalism or send even 1 ounce of hate towards Saint Tontas. That is not what I do here. I am using his video as a springboard to have a conversation with you all. We are all emotionally mature enough to be able to have discussions in a civilized manner. I was a fan of Saint before ever playing ArknightsEndfield, and I am still a fan of his content now. He uses statistics and numbers to form most of, if not all, of his opinions in his videos, and that is a quality that I value in content that I consume. I think it is very important that we in the ArknightsEndfield community do not become an echo chamber of manufactured positivity, and we maintain some semblance of the ability to be critical thinkers. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for both us, the consumer, and ArknightsEndfield, the game we all love so much. Now let's get into it. So Saint starts out the video by going to datafield.cc, which is an ArknightsEndfield website where you can organize the current best teams in the game by DPS output. And who shows up at the top? Lino, Arcane, and Zhuangfang Yi. The most recent character released, as well as 2 of the last DPS characters released, save me Fu. I was also asked to mention by a couple of commenters how it can be really difficult to reach the level of skill needed to hit these DPS thresholds as a player, but personally, I don't want to use that as part of my argument here today. I think that if you're a 10 out of 10 player in terms of skill, and you're able to reach these top levels of DPS, it's going to be kind of similar to a 2 out of 10 skill player playing the characters at a 2 out of 10 skill level. The multipliers in the characters' kits are not dependent on your skill level, and regardless of whether you're a 2 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 in terms of skill, the gap between the 2 characters' DPS, that being Lavatane and Arcane, would remain about the same. I do greatly appreciate everybody commenting and trying to support me though by giving me things to talk about. But personally, I don't want to use this as part of my argument, as I don't necessarily agree that it's relevant here. Although, I do appreciate that you guys did comment, and I want you to know that your opinions are valid, and I appreciate you joining the conversation, even if I don't necessarily agree. So, just wanted to mention that. Lino is a 6-star support that buffs both Electro and Nature teams, and the 2 best DPS in the game happen to be Electro and Nature. Sitting at the tip top of the list is Int-Spec Arcane, Tong Tong, Lino, and Zahi. The DPS total was 153,063.7. Then he looks up the top performing Lavatane team. Lavatane, Antal, Camille, and Ardelia. The DPS total 89,531.1. That is almost half the DPS Arcane is outputting as the newest DPS unit. So, what does this mean? Is Hypergriff so desperate for more profits that they are already trying to make your scarce Aura Barrel investments into these limited banners irrelevant? Are they trying to bait you into feeling left behind so you spend money on the new banners? Well, about that, I'm not convinced. While yes, I can absolutely agree that it seems old Lavatane's DPS is getting left in the dust a little bit, I think there's more going on here than basic power creep. Of course, Hypergriff is a company, and each banner is a product they are trying to sell to you. That you cannot deny. It is how they make profits to keep the game server running, after all. Saint was baffled by how much supposed power creep he was seeing in a game that is still in its 1.x patch cycle. But I think that we are seeing that level of power creep because the game is still in its 1.x cycle. Arcane was the first nature DPS in the game. The nature team before her was non-existent. It didn't exist in any relevant way. We had 3.5 nature characters, 3 supports in Gilberta, Ardelia, and Zahi buffs nature, so I'm counting her as a pseudo-nature character here, and 1 sub-DPS in Fluorite. Zhuang Fengyi is the first 6-star Electro DPS in the game. We also did have a technical Electro DPS in Aviwena, but that was more of a necessary evil for Electro teams in the beginning, since I personally believe she is best slotted into a team as a sub-DPS, just using her battle skill after it's been built up, and also, she's only a 5-star. Lino, on the other hand, is the very first 6-star Electro-specific support option we have ever gotten, and she also happens to buff nature as well, aligning perfectly with Arcane, the only nature DPS. So what's my point? The game is still in its first year. It was only released 6 months ago as of recording this video. Half of the team archetypes in this game are still getting their completed roster. Arcane isn't even the nature hypercarry of the version. Su is going to be a stronger DPS in 1.5, and Arcane is best used as an off-field sub-DPS. Will we consider this power creep to the nature archetype when Su releases? Maybe in a literal way, but I don't think it's really power creep in a meaningful way. Here's an example I made to explain what I mean by that. I hope it resonates with some of you. For those of you who also play Wuthering Waves, we all know one of the best teams right now is Yang Yang Zhuangling, Chisa, and Sui Sui. We all can agree that the current theory is there will be a true Havoc-Bane sub-DPS that will replace Chisa at some point in the future of 3.x. When that happens, will we consider that power creep to the current Yang Yang team, or will we consider that the final piece of the puzzle to make the intended Havoc-Bane team work in the first place? I'm sure Yang Yang's DPS will be higher once replacing Chisa, but is it truly power creep if Chisa was just the best of a bad situation, instead of the proper third teammate that is actually supposed to be there? I don't think that it is. They just weren't released yet. The team wasn't finished. They are still putting the premium pieces of the puzzle together for some teams in ArknightsEndfield. Of course, the 6-star Zhuang Fengyi was always going to hit harder than the 5-star Aviwena. We can all obviously agree on this fact. While it is power creep in the literal number sense, it is not power creep in a way that's meaningful to the player. It's just the actual premium DPS being released. But let's look at Lavatane vs Arcane. A 6-star versus a 6-star. An even playing ground. Lavatane was released in patch 1.0 on January 22nd, 2026. Her premium support and the final piece of the Heat archetype team, Camille, was released on June 26, 2026. So Lavatane has only been at her strongest since less than 2 months ago. Arcane was released in patch 1.4 on July 16th, 2026. 6 months apart from Lavatane. 6 months. Within 6 months, the DPS potential of teams in the game have doubled. 1 month if you want to count the time between Arcane and Camille. Remember, Lavatane output 89k, Arcane output 153k. And like I said, Arcane isn't even the hyper carry nature DPS. Su will hit stronger than her almost guaranteed, and that DPS rift will grow larger. In this regard, we cannot lie to ourselves, that is definitely power creep. The older limited character is doing less DPS than the newer limited character. That's just a fact. But I'd argue it's not a case of greed by the developer. Every single live service product does this. The newer thing only sells if the older thing stops being useful. Look at iPhones, cars, VHS tapes. Even older 2D gacha games are being replaced by the newer, shinier 3D models. I think what's important to discuss about the current state of the power creep in ArknightsEndfield, though, is if it even matters. Lavatane is still clearing Echoes of War with 9 stars, and that's the top tier of difficulty for content in the endgame. If your day 1 6 star is still able to clear the endgame, then why get the new 6 star? ArknightsEndfield doesn't have endgame shield buffs, so newer characters aren't favored over older ones. All of the gacha currency is rewarded for clearing the normal difficulty, which any units can do. Is it relevant that Arcane hits harder than Lavatane? I don't think that it is right now. The key words, though, are right now. This can change. I don't want to gloss over this. If Echoes of War becomes harder to clear with older characters like Lavatane, maybe to the point of requiring some crit fishing to get the perfect run to beat the timer, or Hypergriff adds shield buffs to it and she can't complete it at all, or they change the reward structure, requiring a 9-star clear to get the Oro Barrels, then it becomes a real problem. But they haven't shown any signs of doing this at all. It currently is a case of new toy is more fun, I don't want to play with the old toy anymore. I don't think we should just blindly ignore the potential issue that could arise here with mismanagement of the endgame balancing, though. I don't think St. Tontas talked about this in the way that he did because he hates ArknightsEndfield or the community. I think he is genuinely trying to warn people about the power creep issue and tell you he thinks you should get out of ArknightsEndfield because he genuinely believes it will EOS and you will lose all of your monetary investments and time investments by playing a game he perceives as dying. I talked about this in the way that I did because I believe that the game is doing great. Obviously, it's not the most popular gacha on the market right now. We have the numbers to prove as much, and it does have its share of true issues to address just like anything else, but I do not think that power creep in ArknightsEndfield is currently an issue in any way, shape, or form. We as a community should keep it in the back of our minds and observe the relevance of the power creep as it grows, because it inevitably will. Will it ever become truly relevant to the player base, though? Only time will tell. Thanks again to St. Tontas for his initial video on this topic. I'm going to link it in the description. If you haven't seen it before or you aren't a huge fan of the guy, I implore you to give his videos a shot. He makes good content and is not shy about sharing his truth, even when it's targeted at Wuthering Waves, which is the main game he builds his platform on. He tries to tell it like it is. Hopefully if he sees this, he doesn't go too hard on me. It is what it is. What do you think about the power creep situation in ArknightsEndfield? Did you watch Saint's video? Subscribe to the channel and comment down below. I'd love to hear your guys' takes. And remember, try to be civil. Bye-bye.